Your brain is, it's biologically wired to absolutely hate unpredictable travel.
Oh, completely.
Like when you're standing at a baggage carousel in some foreign city and you slowly realize that your suitcase is just not going to appear.
The worst feeling.
Right. Your nervous system doesn't just register that as a mild inconvenience. For your brain, that sudden loss of predictability, it triggers the exact same fight or flight response it would use if you were suddenly, I don't know, being hunted in the wild.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens.
Your cortisol spikes, your heart rate elevates, and your mind just immediately interprets the situation as this massive threat to your survival. But what if we told you that this exact state of panic, the discomfort, and, utter unpredictability is precisely where your absolute best memories are going to be forged?
It is a really fascinating contradiction, isn't it? I mean, we spend months planning these elaborate trips, and we base our expectations on those glossy travel magazines you see sitting in waiting rooms.
Oh, yeah, with the perfectly filtered lighting.
You know the ones. The perfectly framed photos of someone in a pristine white linen outfit standing on a totally empty beach, just looking out at a flawless sunset.
Not a single drop of sweat on them.
Right, exactly. They look incredibly serene. They look perfectly at peace. And modern travel marketing basically sells us the illusion that this serenity is what we're actually buying. We expect a seamless, entirely frictionless experience from the very moment we leave our front door.
Exactly. But what the marketing brochures, conveniently leave out is the gritty reality of what it actually takes to get to that beach.
The reality is a lot messier.
It really is. They don't show the 3 delayed connecting flights. They don't show the aggressive mosquito bites, the food poisoning, or that deeply terrifying moment where you're standing on a street corner at 2 a.m. holding a map that makes absolutely no sense.
While trying to ask for directions in a language you do not speak.
Yes. That is the actual reality of moving through the world, which brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at this really insightful article titled Comfort with Discomfort: Learning to Love the Dust of Travel.
And the piece was written by Anita L. Hummel. Her background provides a really specific lens for this topic.
Yeah, she's not just a casual tourist.
Not at all. She is an anthropologist, a sailor, and a seasoned traveler who has spent over 30 years living and working across Asia. So, the perspectives she's sharing in this article aren't coming from someone who just occasionally takes a 2-week vacation to an all-inclusive resort.
Right.
They're coming from decades of on-the-ground experience navigating really complex, unfamiliar environments.
And the core argument she presents is that we need a fundamental mindset shift for how we view these messy, chaotic, completely uncomfortable moments of any journey. She refers to these moments as the dust.
I love that term, the dust.
Me too. And she argues that instead of just like white-knuckling our way through the dust, just waiting for the misery to end so the real vacation can start, we need to understand that the dust is actually the secret to building resilience, gaining perspective, and, crafting the stories we'll be telling for the rest of our lives.
It's a complete inversion of how the modern travel industry conditions us to think. I mean, Hummel is taking the very things we usually pay premium prices to avoid, and she's repositioning them as the actual core value of the experience.
Yeah.
But before we explore how to embrace that discomfort, we should probably establish what this dust actually looks and feels like in practice, because she uses some highly specific examples to really ground the concept.
Yeah, the article is full of these incredibly vivid scenarios that just instantly shatter that illusion of perfect travel. Like, picture being on an uncrowded local bus, rattling down a bumpy, unpaved road in a rural area.
Oh, I can feel the potholes already.
Right. You are feeling every single pothole reverberate up your spine.
Yeah.
The heat is entirely oppressive, and there is just this thick, unrelenting dust swirling through the air, covering your clothes, getting into your hair, and just clinging to your sweaty skin.
Or consider the experience of standing in a massive, seemingly endless line at a crowded international airport. You're running on maybe 2 hours of sleep.
Ugh, the worst.
You're carrying a heavy backpack that's digging into your shoulders. and the air around you is thick with the hum of frantic announcements and simultaneous conversations in 5 different languages you can't even begin to decipher.
All while you're connecting flight leaves in 20 minutes.
Exactly, and you have absolutely no control over how fast that line moves.
Or just the pure grinding logistical nightmare of trying to make sense of a confusing train schedule in a sprawling foreign metropolis.
Yeah.
Or, trying to negotiate a basic fare with a taxi driver when neither of you shares a single word of the same language.
Yeah.
These are the moments where your brain is just screaming at you that you have made a terrible mistake and you just want to magically teleport back to the safety and predictability of your own living room.
What's fascinating here is how the article frames these specific moments. Our immediate visceral instinct is to view them as trip-ruining disasters. Right?
Well, absolutely. We get intensely angry.
Right. We feel victimized by the circumstances. But Hummel categorizes them simply as the dust of travel. They are inevitable frictions. They make us long for the predictability of home, yes. But she makes the case that these dusty moments are the exact places where the actual texture of a journey is formed.
Okay, let's unpack this because to a lot of people, this is going to sound entirely counterintuitive. It's like ordering a beautiful, elaborate, expensive meal at a high-end restaurant, but then complaining that you actually have to expend the energy to chew the food.
That's a great analogy.
Right. The effort, the mechanical process of chewing is inherently part of the experience. You can't extract the nourishment or fully experience the flavors without engaging in that mechanical process. But if we follow that logic, why is it that our brains naturally want to reject these dusty moments so violently when they are so, fundamental to the journey?
Well, that brings us right back to the evolutionary psychology we touched on at the beginning. It really comes down to our natural biological craving for safety, and safety is inherently tied to predictability.
Yeah.
When you're in your home environment, your brain operates largely on autopilot. It knows how the grocery store works, it knows the language, it knows the traffic patterns, but when you are in a foreign environment, your brain is suddenly forced to work overtime to process thousands of new stimuli every single minute.
So your cognitive load is already completely maxed out just by existing in that new space.
Precisely. You are constantly calculating basic survival logistics, how to cross this particular street without getting hit, where you're going to sleep, how you're going to acquire your next meal.
Yeah.
So when something unexpectedly goes wrong on top of all that, like when the bus breaks down or the train schedule suddenly changes, your brain interprets that sudden loss of control as a severe threat. You no longer know what is going to happen next, and to the primitive part of your brain, uncertainty equals danger. That's why the discomfort feels so physically overwhelming.
So we've established that the dust is this deeply ingrained, unavoidable reality of stepping outside your comfort zone. It's going to happen whether you're backpacking through a remote village or trying to navigate a major, highly developed modern metropolis.
It's everywhere.
Right. Now we need to dig into the mechanics of why the article suggests we should actively embrace it instead of just surviving it. Hummel outlines several psychological benefits, and the most prominent one is the development of deep, lasting resilience, like the ability to genuinely roll with the punches.
And this is where the perspective shifts from merely surviving an ordeal to actually extracting value from it. The article points out that missing a connecting flight in a foreign country doesn't actually have to be a panic-inducing event.
Though it usually feels like one.
True. But once you accept that the flight is gone and you cannot change reality, it becomes an unexpected opportunity. It might be a chance to explore a city you never intended to visit. Every time you lose a bag or you get caught in a sudden rainstorm without an umbrella and have to find shelter, you are actively building a neurological problem-solving muscle.
It's like resistance training for your central nervous system. You're exposing yourself to microdoses of stress, and by surviving them, you're proving to your brain that you are capable of handling uncertainty.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the resilience you build in those moments doesn't just evaporate the second you return from vacation.
Right.
When you learn to adapt and problem-solve your way out of a confusing subway system abroad while deeply fatigued, you are actually rewiring your brain's response to stress. You return home as a more adaptable person, much better equipped to handle a sudden crisis at work or an unexpected problem in your personal life. You develop a profound, quiet trust in your own competence.
Wow, yeah. The article also emphasizes the rapid development of perspective. Because when you're physically squeezed into the back of a sweltering, unair-conditioned bus, the human brain has a tendency to catastrophize.
Oh, big time. It feels like it will never end.
It feels like that specific discomfort is going to last until the end of time. But the reality of travel teaches you that discomfort is inherently temporary.
It forces you to recognize the fleeting nature of both good and bad experiences. The delays, the confusion, the exhaustion, the dust, they all eventually pass. And what remains after the discomfort fades is the pride of having successfully navigated a challenging new environment.
Or just the memory of someone helping you out.
Yes, very often the lasting memory is the kindness of a stranger who noticed you were struggling and pointed you in the right direction. You realize on a visceral level that a rough day on the road is just one day. It does not define the entire journey, nor does it define your life.
Which leads right into the concept of finding deep joy in imperfection. The author shares a really compelling story about getting completely turned around and lost in the winding labyrinth-like streets of Marrakech.
Which, for anyone who hasn't been there, can be an incredibly intimidating experience. The Medina is this dense, complicated web of narrow alleys, and GPS is often completely useless.
Exactly. And what started out as this deeply frustrating, highly anxiety-inducing detour actually transformed into the highlight of her trip. Because she was lost and forced off her carefully planned itinerary, she stumbled upon this beautiful hidden courtyard that wasn't in any guidebook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she ended up sitting down and sharing tea with a group of locals. She learned more about the authentic, everyday heartbeat of that city in that single unplanned afternoon than she ever could have learned by following a strict schedule of tourist attractions.
It perfectly illustrates the shift from passive suffering to active growth. I mean, she didn't just endure being lost, she allowed the situation to guide her toward an experience she couldn't have planned if she tried.
Now, I have to step in and introduce some friction here, because it is very easy to sit in a comfortable studio and romanticize getting lost in Marrakech after the fact.
Fair point.
It sounds poetic when you are safely home. But let's be incredibly honest, when you are actually in the thick of it, when you're sweating profusely, your feet are covered in blisters, you're dehydrated, and you have absolutely no idea how to get back to your hotel.
Yeah.
It does not feel like a magical opportunity for growth. It feels genuinely awful.
It really does.
So my question is, isn't telling someone to just find the joy in those moments verging on toxic positivity? How does Hummel suggest you actually differentiate between healthy adaptation and just aggressively ignoring a terrible situation in the moment?
That is the absolute crucial question, and it's where the article moves from abstract philosophy to practical application. Recognizing the value of discomfort on a conceptual level is completely different from managing your emotional regulation when your plans are actively falling apart.
Right.
The author doesn't suggest pretending you aren't miserable. Instead, she offers a framework for managing the psychological response in the moment, preventing that discomfort from spiraling into rage.
Right. She lays out a 5-step toolkit for navigating these messy moments.
Yeah.
And it really begins with the fundamental act of letting go of expectations.
Yes. Step 1.
You have to intellectually accept before you even leave your house that travel is an inherently unpredictable activity. Your flight will probably be delayed. Your meticulous itinerary will likely fall apart by day 2. You might sit down at a restaurant and end up eating something when you have absolutely no idea what it is or how to pronounce it.
The anger we feel in those moments almost always stems from the gap between our rigid expectation and the reality unfolding in front of us. If you grip your perfect, sanitized itinerary too tightly, it becomes brittle. When it inevitably breaks, you will be miserable. But if you consciously drop the expectation of perfection, you close that gap. You accept reality as it is, which immediately dissipates the anger and allows the actual journey to happen. And that ties right into her second step, which is staying patient, reminding yourself that the line will eventually move.
And the third step is the ability to find humor in shared misery. If you find yourself crammed into the back of a tiny, sweltering shared taxi alongside like a crate of chickens, you essentially have 2 choices.
Complain or laugh.
Exactly. You can sit there and stew in your own anger, isolating yourself.
Oh.
Or you can recognize the absolute absurdity of the situation and laugh about it.
And that laughter serves a very specific psychological function. It acts as a release valve for the tension. Shared vulnerability, experiencing discomfort alongside others, and acknowledging it with humor is one of the fastest ways human beings bond. It breaks down social barriers and turns an objectively miserable situation into a collective story.
She also touches on the profound importance of being intensely present for step 4, which I think is perhaps the most difficult challenge for the modern traveler.
Oh, without a doubt.
When things get dusty, our immediate instinct is to pull out our smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
We want to instantly look up a solution or complain to someone back home or just mindlessly scroll to distract ourselves from the physical discomfort of the moment.
The article highlights this as the fundamental difference between passive suffering and active observation. If you are just staring down at a screen, waiting impatiently for the misery to end so you can move on to the next thing, you are suffering passively. You're trapped in the discomfort without extracting any meaning from it.
Just enduring it.
Exactly. But if you put the phone down, look up, and actively observe the chaos unfolding around you, you are engaging with the world. You're taking the stance of an observer rather than a victim, which leads to her final step, practicing gratitude.
Shifting your brain out of a deficit mindset and into an abundance mindset. Yes, you might be stuck in mind-numbing gridlock traffic for 2 hours,
Yeah.
but you're stuck in traffic while looking out the window at the architecture of a brand new, incredibly vibrant city.
Right.
You have the health, the means, and the freedom to be experiencing the world, even if the current moment is loud and uncomfortable.
That cognitive reframe is incredibly powerful. It doesn't erase the physical discomfort of the traffic jam, but it completely alters your emotional relationship to it.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This toolkit, it's basically like an emotional shock absorber for life. But I'm curious, of these 5 steps, which one do you think is the most critical for a traveler who is just about to completely lose their temper?
Honestly, it has to be the first one. Letting go of expectations.
Really?
Yeah, because if you don't do that, the other 4 steps are nearly impossible to execute. You can't find humor or gratitude if you are still fiercely demanding that reality bend to your original plan. Acceptance has to come first.
That makes total sense. So let's take this theoretical framework and see what it actually looks like when it's aggressively stress-tested in the real world. Hummel shares 3 very specific, vivid stories from her decades as a global citizen that really illustrate these concepts in action.
These field notes are where the anthropological lens of the author really comes into sharp focus.
The first scenario takes place in China. She was traveling on a local bus down an incredibly dusty, unpaved road. There was absolutely no air conditioning. The heat was completely oppressive, and because the windows were open, the dust from the road was just relentlessly blowing directly into her face.
Sounds brutal.
It was hot, it was gritty, and it was deeply physically exhausting.
In a situation like that, the natural human reaction is sensory retreat. You want to close your eyes, cover your face with a scarf, put in headphones, and just mentally check out until the ride is finally over.
But instead of succumbing to the heat and the grit, she consciously applied this mindset. She actively chose to keep her eyes open and focus intensely on the vibrant, chaotic life happening right outside the window.
Active observation.
Exactly. She paid attention to the unique smells of the region, the architecture of the passing villages, the specific way the landscape shifted. By making a deliberate choice to be profoundly present, she transformed what could have been just a miserable, forgettable bus ride into a vivid, highly textured memory of the character of that specific region.
Then she shares a brilliant story from Cambodia. She found herself alone in a dense crowd, experiencing that deeply overwhelming, highly isolating feeling of a total language barrier. She couldn't speak the local language, and no one around her spoke hers.
It's a very specific, almost claustrophobic kind of loneliness, isn't it?
Oh, very much so.
Being physically surrounded by hundreds of people, hearing the constant hum of chatter, but being entirely cut off from participating in it. The sensory deprivation of not understanding the social cues around you usually causes people to panic and retreat inward.
Exactly. But instead of retreating into that isolation and letting the panic take over, she leaned directly into it. She bypassed the linguistic cortex entirely and tapped into deeper nonverbal methods of human connection.
Like what?
She started using deliberate, simple gestures. She made direct eye contact. She smiled warmly at the people around her, and she found that she was able to instantly bridge that massive cultural and linguistic gap. She found common ground, mutual respect, and genuine connection without needing a single shared word. It is a perfect example of applied anthropology.
Wow. And her third story takes us to India. She describes standing in an incredibly sweltering, noisy, densely crowded airport in Delhi. The sheer volume of people moving in every direction, the heat and the cacophony of sound was just completely overwhelming to the senses.
This raises an important question about the modern travel industry. So often we throw money at situations specifically to avoid this kind of sensory overload.
Oh, totally. We pay for upgrades.
Right. We pay premium prices for the quiet, climate-controlled lounge. We pay for the VIP fast-track lane. We pay quite literally to be insulated and physically separated from the chaos of the masses.
But by being forced to stand right in the middle of that sweltering chaos, she took a deep breath, dropped her frustration, and simply observed the ecosystem around her. And because she was looking for it, she found profound beauty in the noise.
Yeah.
She watched families experiencing highly emotional reunions with tears in their eyes. She watched the exhausted airport staff working tirelessly to keep this massive, complex machine moving. She saw the raw, unfiltered humanity of the crowd.
And that is the crucial insight of the entire article. Discomfort often serves as a mask that hides genuine human connection. If she had purchased her way into an air-conditioned, perfectly quiet, sanitized VIP lounge, she would have undoubtedly been more physically comfortable.
But she would have missed all of that.
She would have been completely isolated from that beautiful, raw display of shared humanity. The insulation we constantly crave and pay for actually robs us of the serendipitous connections we fundamentally need as human beings.
I really keep coming back to how her background in anthropology acts as a superpower in these situations. If you can train yourself to treat these highly stressful, unpredictable moments almost like a clinical anthropological study.
That's a great way to phrase it.
Like, if you can become intensely, objectively curious about the environment and the behaviors of the people around you, rather than subjectively demanding that the environment instantly cater to your specific personal needs, it completely diffuses your anger. You are no longer a helpless victim of a delayed flight or a lost bag. You become an active, fascinated observer of a complex human ecosystem.
It is the ultimate psychological reframe. You stop viewing yourself as a customer demanding perfect service from the world, and you start viewing yourself as a student attempting to understand it.
So what does this all mean? It means that the absolute best, most experienced travelers in the world, and honestly the most resilient, adaptable people in everyday life, are not the ones who possess the magical ability to never experience flight delays, bad weather, or logistical nightmares.
No, they experience them just as much as anyone else.
Right. They are simply the people who have trained themselves not to react with explosive anger when the meticulously crafted plans inevitably fall apart. They recognize the gap between expectation and reality, they roll with the punches, they let go of the illusion of control, and they move forward with curiosity.
And it is absolutely vital to remember that you do not need a stamped passport or a plane ticket to Delhi or a month-long trek through Cambodia to start practicing this specific mindset.
Exactly. The dust is not exclusive to international travel. The dust happens in your own hometown and your own neighborhood every single day.
Oh, definitely.
The line at the grocery store is inexplicably long. The subway train breaks down in the middle of a tunnel during your morning commute. Your reservation at a restaurant gets completely lost and you have to wait outside in the rain.
It's unavoidable.
The friction of existence is universal. The only real question is whether you're going to let that unexpected friction ruin your entire day and spike your cortisol, or if you're going to use it as a low-stakes opportunity to practice a little patience, find a little absurd humor in the situation, and actively build a little more neurological resilience.
Which leaves us with a highly provocative, lingering question to ponder as we wrap up this analysis. We are rapidly entering an era where technology, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality are promising us the ability to perfectly curate, sanitize, and control every single aspect of our experiences.
Everything is becoming optimized.
Exactly. So if the absolute best, most profound, and most deeply memorable stories of our entire lives are consistently born out of the dust, out of the unscripted moments where things go entirely wrong and we are forced to adapt and connect with others, will our relentless modern obsession with optimizing and entirely friction-proofing our future actually end up robbing us of our humanity?
Wow, that is an incredibly powerful thought to leave on. Are we utilizing technology to optimize the serendipity and the joy right out of our lives by aggressively refusing to experience the dust? I want you to seriously think about that question the very next time you find yourself stuck in a long, frustrating line or a seemingly endless traffic jam.
Put the phone down.
Yes. Resist the urge to pull out your phone. Look up. Look around you. Actively observe the ecosystem and see if you can find the story hidden right there inside the chaos. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the psychology of travel, resilience, and human connection, we would love for you to join our growing community of curious minds.
We really would.
Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an analysis. Head over and subscribe to our YouTube channel for even more great content. And make sure to sign up for our newsletter to stay completely up to date on our latest releases. You can also check out our blog for more detailed insights and resources on the topics we cover.
Lots of great stuff there.
Absolutely. Until next time, The next time life unexpectedly hands you a bumpy, unpaved road and a face full of dirt, remember your two options. You can either sit there and complain about the effort it takes to chew the meal, or you could just smile, let go of your expectations and start chewing. Embrace the dust. It's all part of the journey.